Welcome, everybody. President Johnson, distinguished alumni, students, faculty, staff, and guests, good afternoon. I'm Erin Corcoran. I'm class of 2013, and I'm the Assistant Vice President for Alumni Relations and Global Engagement. It is my great pleasure, on behalf of the Wellesley College Alumni Association, to welcome you to the 56th Alumnae Achievement Awards ceremony. I will begin by reading the Wellesley College Land Acknowledgement. We acknowledge that Wellesley College is built on ancestral and traditional land of the Massachusetts people. We also recognize that the United States removal, termination, and assimilation policies and practices resulted in the forced settlement of Indigenous lands and the attempted erasure of Indigenous cultures and languages. We further acknowledge the oppression, injustices, and discrimination that Indigenous people have endured, and that there is much more work to be done on the important journey to reconciliation. We commit to strengthen our understanding of the history and contemporary lives of Indigenous peoples and to steward this land. We further recognize the many Indigenous people living here today, including the Massachusetts, Wampanoag, and Nipmuc nations, who have rich ancestral histories in Wellesley and its surrounding communities. Today, their descendants remind us that they are still here, where they maintain a vital and visible presence. We honor and respect the enduring relationship between these peoples and this land, as well as the strength of Indigenous culture and knowledge, the continued existence of tribal sovereignty, and the principle of tribal self-determination. I would now like to introduce Steph C., class of 1989, president of the Wellesley College Alumni Association Board and current trustee, to kick off this year's Alumnae Achievement Awards ceremony.
Thanks, Erin. Good afternoon, everyone. The Alumnae Achievement Award was established by the Alumni Association to recognize the outstanding accomplishments of Wellesley graduates, and the award remains the highest honor that Wellesley bestows. Over the last 56 years, this award has been earned by scientists, artists, entrepreneurs, judges, and journalists. We've recognized doctors, advocates, business leaders, and educators, historians, authors, and even an astronaut. Past recipients not only represent an extensive range of fields, they also come from class years that span from 1909 to 1994. Many of the awardees face challenges that paved the way for the Wellesley graduates who followed them, as well as the students of today. We've heard from awardees who, during their time at Wellesley, couldn't have imagined the accomplishments that were in their future. And we are honored to have past Alumnae Achievement Award recipients with us today. So if those of you who are past recipients could please stand so we could acknowledge you and applaud you. You all remain an inspiration, and we are honored to have you with us today. So, the oak tree, it's an integral part of the Wellesley College tradition. The oak leaf pin that is presented to each Alumnae Achievement Award recipient symbolizes the strength, quality, and durability of the college and our alumni. The acorn, also represented on the pin, reminds us of our own potential to turn our time at Wellesley into a life of purpose, meaning, and positive impact. Nearly 170 alumni have received the esteemed pin and the distinction of being an Alumnae Achievement Awardee. And this evening, we are thrilled to add 3 more amazing women to that list. So, as you can imagine, it takes an enormous amount of time and effort to select the recipients of this award. This important work is carried out by the Alumnae Achievement Awards Selection Committee. The committee is charged with the daunting task of identifying and selecting from among Wellesley's remarkable alumni body a few individuals who have brought particular honor to themselves and to the college through demonstrated excellence in their chosen fields. Committee members meet throughout the year, carefully reading hundreds of pages of information about each nominee's work and professional achievements. We extend our heartfelt thanks to these committee members for their dedication and care throughout the nomination and selection process, both those who chose tonight's honorees and those who will carry on with this important work. So if the committee members who are able to be present with us today could please stand so we could thank and acknowledge you as well, that would be wonderful. Also in the audience, we are joined by members of the Alumnae Association Board. Would the members of the board please rise and be recognized? I'm so honored to work with these amazing volunteers. We are also joined today by several current and former members of the college's Board of Trustees and past Alumnae Association board members. Would all of you also please stand so we could thank you for your service and acknowledge you. And now, to help me present tonight's awards, we are honored to have the 14th president of Wellesley College join us, President Paula Johnson.
Thank you, Steph, and thank you to the selection committee. Steph, I want to echo your sentiments. It is truly a joy to have past award recipients here to take part in this celebration of alumni excellence, and for our previous honorees to welcome their fellow alumni into their prestigious company. It's also such a pleasure to honor our alumni during Family and Friends Weekend, when the campus is really bursting with life. As others have noted, it's especially meaningful to be here as part of our 150th anniversary festivities of celebrating our history, truly our legacy, of educating brilliant women to be a transformative force in the world. This is also a time to look forward and imagine our future. In fact, as I thought about today's honorees, I had to wonder if in another 150 years, their stories will be among those lifted up as models of what a Wellesley education can produce. And I would just say, just as we've done this year with our beautiful Now and Forever book, and a special thanks to our own Lisa Scanlon-Mongolov, class of '99, for leading this project, because those are truly inspiring stories, as you will hear today. So as Steph explained, for more than a half a century, the Alumnae Association has recognized the outstanding alumni who have brought particular honor to themselves and to the values they hold dear, to Wellesley and to their chosen fields and professional domains. Each year, it's a special privilege for me to help bestow this highest honor, and each year we are inspired by the astounding talent, drive, and remarkable accomplishments of the Achievement Award recipients. With careers and pursuits that span arenas, industries, and disciplines, each of the many recipients of this award over time embody what we seek to instill in a Wellesley education: the transformative power of curiosity, the capacity to connect across difference and work with others, the practice of rigorous inquiry and critical thinking to break new ground, and the skills and persistence that make the world a more just and equitable place. This is the gift of a Wellesley education and a testament to the power of a liberal arts education. Many past recipients of this award are true originals who have spent their lives in service of the greater good, and leaders who've overcome challenges and showed the way forward with determination and vision. Year after year, our honorees pave the way for others to serve as shining exemplars of all that a Wellesley graduate can imagine, create, and achieve. So often our alumni become the first at what they do. Theirs are stories of doors open and kept open, of ladders lent to others so that they can climb still higher. And at Wellesley, first lead to next, and this award reminds us that our students are indeed a community of next, with the mighty talents of their own, and encouraged by those who came before them, alumni whose lives inspire them to explore, gain confidence, and take their first steps towards making a difference in the world. This is why we are honoring these extraordinary women, as well as a legacy of leadership, mentorship, and service that stretches across decades. We'll soon present each Alumnae Achievement Award, but first I'd like to turn it back over to Steph C.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Paula. and thank you for your outstanding stewardship of Wellesley College. Now it is my privilege and extreme pleasure to introduce the recipients of the 2025 Alumnae Achievement Award. Karen Grigsby Bates, class of 1973. Karen is an author and an award-winning journalist who has spent her career telling the stories of marginalized peoples and helping change how media reports on race. Karen is one of the country's most prolific journalists and writers on race and on the rich complexities of the human experience. Her work earned her the 2023 Gwen Ifill Award by the International Women's Media Foundation for her mentorship and trailblazing reporting on race. After serving as a correspondent for National Public Radio's National Desk, Karen became a founding member of NPR's award-winning Code Switch podcast, one of the first podcasts of its kind to tackle race, culture, and society in a more direct way. Bates began one episode with, "Okay, so we all know race is a social construct, right?" Audiences and the industry loved what they heard. Code Switch was named Show of the Year by Apple and one of Time Magazine's best podcasts of all time. Karen has masterfully shared stories that have touched us, educated us, and moved us to action. Over the years, she has written about the surviving airmen of the Tuskegee, centering the voices of some of America's first Black pilots, has revisited the site of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, covered the rise of hunger in America by visiting people in food pantries, and reported on how Black and brown workers were mostly left to clean up the mess of January 6th. Race has never been a part of how I've lived, she says. When COVID shut down the country in 2020, she spoke on NPR about why COVID patients of color became sicker and were more likely to die from the virus. In an award-winning feature for the Wellesley magazine in fall of 2020, she told the story of Zoe Mungin, class of 2011, a young alum who died of COVID after twice being turned away from a hospital that dismissed her illness as asthma and a panic attack. Being able to make visible some of those things, Karen says, was something I really felt the need to do, an ethos she has carried throughout her career in journalism. Karen's talents as a writer are many. She has written 2 mystery novels and is co-author of the best-selling etiquette book, Basic Black, a home training for modern times. She's been a contributing columnist for the LA Times and written for People and Time magazines. Karen credits her time at Wellesley when students joined the movement to oppose the Vietnam War as helping her firm understanding of the hierarchies that surround us. Karen and Paula, could you please join me at the podium? Karen, for your decades of principled, compassionate, and compelling reporting, for your work making the unseen seen, and for broadening and deepening our understanding of race and racism. Wellesley honors you.
Thank you both. I'm really happy to be back here to celebrate the college, especially during this weekend. Friends and family, 150th, there's a lot going on. I should point out that the Wellesley that we're sitting in today is not the Wellesley I came to way back in the fall of 1969. And I'm going to spend a few minutes telling you what that Wellesley felt like to me back then. I arrived at Wellesley on a day a lot like this one. It was really beautiful. The leaves on the trees shading the new dorms hadn't changed yet, but we could see that was going to be happening. My new roommate was black, but she was a different black from me, which is to say, I was from New Haven, just down the road. She was from a southern Illinois town so much closer to Kentucky that her radio stations played country music all the time. And so when I saw her record collection, yes. I was a little surprised. She had Charlie Pride and Porter Wagner and Dolly Parton and Merle Haggard, and it's like, huh, what? And Cream and the Animals, so she had very eclectic tastes. My contribution was more predictable. It was mostly soul, and it was all the stuff your parents and maybe even your grandparents cried to as they watched The Big Chill. The Temptations, Marvin Gaye, The Supremes, Tina Turner, with and without Ike, and of course Aretha Franklin and the Jackson 5. And I had some crunchy granola stuff, Judy Collins, Simon and Garfunkel, and Joan Baez. In 1969, Wellesley was trying to figure out what to make of the class of 1973. That year, we were the biggest freshman class in the history of the school, the baby boom elephant in the national python, to steal a metaphor from the sociology department. And within that biggest class was the largest number of black incomings the school had ever had, 55 out of 525 students total. That included a few students from countries in Africa and the Caribbean. The previous year, black upperclasswomen here had worked tirelessly to increase the numbers of black students in the class of 73. Comparatively speaking, 55 was a humongous number. For some of us, as one classmate noted, it was the first time there were enough black people in the room that she could afford not to like some of them. This is a true story. For those of us who'd spent years integrating schools and being the first or maybe the only or one of very few, that was quite a luxury. In the late 60s, affirmative action had begun on many campuses. We quickly learned the assumption from many people, students and faculty, was that this was the sole reason we had been admitted. And some of us were. I imagine I was. Unlike Clarence Thomas, I did not and do not feel stigmatized by that. I think it adds to the richness and the diversity of Wellesley. And while race might have been a consideration in admitting some of us, race could not keep us here. We had to do that ourselves. Academically speaking, I had a remarkably nonlinear regression here. I flunked botany my sophomore year. Dr. Crichton helped me out, and I finally passed it, but I made the dean's list in other semesters, so I hope it averaged out. I hope. There were also black women who were just effortlessly brilliant in everything they did, who at once impressed and intimidated me with that brilliance. And some of them are here this evening. They didn't know it, but they were role models for me and for many of our classmates, and I was really lucky to have the eternally splendid Maud Chaplin as our class dean and my personal advisor. Yes. If I ever questioned aloud whether I should be here, Maud would tell me, keep pushing, and assured me I was in the right place, and I'll always be grateful to her for that. It wasn't just the college that had to adjust to this new population. Until they got used to having a larger number of black students, the town of Wellesley had to do some adjusting of its own. And for them, the idea that things had become diverse almost overnight. Sometimes we were given the side eye in the little shops in the Ville when we went in. Sometimes we were trailed by staff who were a little unnerved at their new brown customers. Everybody eventually relaxed, but it took a little while. One of the things most of us black students considered a saving grace when we were here was Ethos and Harambe House. Both provided a truly important cultural haven for us, a little respite when being in the minority became a bit exhausting, and a place where we didn't have to explain race. So by 1973, I graduated, and I learned a couple things. One thing was to keep asking questions until you got an answer that made sense. And whoever first said, "because I said so," did not go to Wellesley. Asking lots of questions used to get me put in the corner in elementary school, and I'd get evaluations like, "Good student, talks too much." I imagine there are some people in the room here who have had a similar experience. From Wellesley, I learned that community was and is and ever shall be part of what will sustain you as you go through life, this community especially. I've learned over the year that the Wellesley network is real and powerful as any old boy network, and you should use it. Reach out to people who might be able to help you or put a word in, and also reach out and help other alums use it and point them in the right direction if they ask you to. As one illustrious alumna likes to say, it takes a village. If you told me freshman year that the mosaic of Wellesley students could be as varied and as beautiful and as huge as it is today, I would not have believed you. The fact that this diversity exists shows that Wellesley truly recognizes that our differences are our strength, and I hope it will always be that way. And in a time when women's rights to even exist on their own terms is being threatened, Wellesley stands strong in insisting that educating women is a valuable priority, not just for us, but for the worlds we'll move in after we leave. I'm delighted that our 150th anniversary, we can proudly also claim a black woman as president of this place we so love, a woman who did not come from Wellesley, but who, since she's been here, has become about as Wellesley as you can get. I am very proud of President Paula Johnson and her tireless work on Wellesley's behalf. It can't be easy right now. Finally, Wellesley taught me that asking questions is a right, a duty even, and we should keep doing that long after we've walked across the stage to accept that hard-earned diploma. Whether you're questioning a city council member about zoning plans, your doctor about the proposed treatment for your body, or your child's teacher who just wants her students to do what she says and not asking anything because she said so. Don't let them put her in the corner because she's trying to get answers to something that she wants to know more about. So here's to the next 150 years. May Wellesley be full of growth and difference and forward movement while keeping in mind the best part of our past. Thank you so much for this honor.
Thank you, Karen. Beautiful. Okay. Jocelyn Benson, class of 1999. Jocelyn is one of the nation's foremost voter rights advocates, Michigan's current Secretary of State, and maybe on the road to becoming the state's next governor. Jocelyn catapulted into the national spotlight after the 2020 election when she fiercely defended Michigan's election process as the state's presidential election results were among those called into question after Joe Biden's win over Donald Trump. The country and its leaders took notice. In 2023, President Joe Biden awarded Jocelyn a Presidential Citizens Medal, the nation's second highest civilian award for defending democracy, and she received the Brennan Center for Justice's Legacy Award that same year for, quote, serving as a model for the nation by safeguarding every vote and every voice in her fierce protection of fair elections. The John F. Kennedy Presidential Library Foundation also honored Jocelyn with its 2022 Profile in Courage Award. Jocelyn has long been passionate about upholding voting rights. Early in her career, she moved to Alabama and worked with the Southern Poverty Law Center to investigate white supremacists and other hate groups. That experience, she says, taught her to be fearless and courageous and drove home how vital voting rights are to our democracy. Quote, it was there where I really became instilled with a deep sense of responsibility to continue on the work of those who've come before us to build a better world and stand up for what's right and for our rights and freedoms, she says. Jocelyn went on to get a master's in sociology as a Marshall Scholar at the University of Oxford, and then received her JD from Harvard Law School. In 2005, she joined the faculty of Wayne State University Law School, and just 7 years later, at the age of 36, became dean, the youngest woman ever to lead a top 100 accredited American law school. As dean, she worked to improve affordability, raise the school's profile, and expand her students' employment opportunities. One consistent theme of her career, Jocelyn continues to march forward and reach back, despite all the noise around her. Wellesley alumni all know the phrase, well-behaved women rarely make history. Jocelyn lives by the saying, which to her means to not cede your power, what you're capable of, or to anyone or anything, not to preconceived notions of what's possible, not to expectations that others may have on what you should do with your life or your career. Jocelyn's campaign for governor of Michigan comes at a time when she sees our democracy at the precipice. Now more than ever, she says, we need more leaders on all sides of the political spectrum who see themselves as public servants first and lead with that ethos in mind. Jocelyn and Paula, if you could please join me. Jocelyn, for your courageous leadership and your staunch protection of democracy's most important right, Wellesley honors you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Wow, what an honor. Thank you. It's an extraordinary honor to be here with all of you in the institution that made me who I am. And it strikes me that we are celebrating not just achievements of us and this incredible institution, but we're also celebrating sisterhood. You know, my parents were special education teachers, and they taught me at a young age that everyone needs to have a seat at the table and equal access to opportunity in our country if we are all going to function and flourish and reach our highest potential. And they instilled in me the value that we all have the responsibility to see each other, to help each other, and work to make sure that we all have that seat at the table. So rooted in those values, I came here to Wellesley, and from there connected to a true sisterhood, full of inspiring friends, late-night conversations, vibrant classroom discussions where every voice was valued and none was dismissed, and with the political science department filled with inspiring mentors like Alan Schechter, and yes, even a First Lady of the United States named Hillary Rodham Clinton, and a Secretary of State named Madeleine Albright, both of whom were serving their country while I was a student here. And I was here trying to find my path, in the words of our Wellesley motto, to not be ministered unto, but to minister. And my years at Wellesley taught me, inspired me to never take no for an answer, to break barriers, to forge my own path when none presents itself, and also instilled in me the courage that enabled me to start my career at the Southern Poverty Law Center in the Deep South, where I was able to go undercover at the age of 20, investigating extremist organizations throughout the country. And it was living in Alabama, which I had the courage and fortitude to do on my own, thanks to the strength that was born here in these halls at this campus. And it was there I saw firsthand how much work we still have to do to overcome generational poverty that has imperiled and impeded the progress of so many of us, including many in our most marginalized communities. And now then, in Alabama also was instilled with this recognition that we all still have work to do to ensure that the work of the foot soldiers who marched and bled in Selma to ensure that one person, one vote promise in our Constitution is a reality for everyone, that work was us, all of us, to absorb and continue as well. And so 20 years after that, 20 years later, I found myself in the national spotlight along with other secretaries of state as we worked as our state's chief election officers to protect the will of the people against what was an unprecedented, nationally coordinated effort to undo the accurate results of a presidential election. And in Michigan, we were ready. We spent the year modernizing our election system and educating citizens, all citizens, about their right to vote from home, no matter who they would vote for, and working to elevate the truth to ensure that every citizen, every voter could have the confidence and the clarity that they needed to exercise their right to vote amidst what was then a global pandemic. And when the polls closed on election night in November 2020, I was really proud. We had administered, through working with professional election administrators on both sides of the aisle, a smooth, seamless, secure election in which more Michigan citizens voted at that time from both sides of the aisle than ever before in our state's history. But in the days and the weeks that followed, we battled still this unprecedented effort to interfere with the tabulation of valid votes, to block the certification of election results, and to attempt to submit a false alternate slate of electors to the National Archives. We all saw this escalate into tragedy at our U.S. Capitol on January 6th. It became abundantly clear to me during that moment that we were up against not just an effort to overturn the results of one specific presidential election, but we were entering a battle over the future of our democracy. And it was a battle, we realized, that was just beginning. And yes, democracy prevailed in 2020, but it only prevailed then and will continue to prevail now if people of integrity from both sides of the aisle will follow the law, uphold our constitutional principles, and ensure that every valid vote is counted always, no matter the results. That is what is required to give faith and confidence to the American people that our voice matters and that our votes count. Many of us engaged in this work, this basic work of upholding our Constitution and seeking accountability for those who would trample on its protections, have faced real threats to our safety for simply doing our jobs with integrity. But we cannot, as Wellesley taught me, we cannot and will not allow fear or threats to prevent us from standing up for what's right. Because we know those threats against us are also threats to democracy and the millions of Americans who have fought for the right to choose our leaders and hold them accountable every year of our republic. And so now as I look ahead at what we must do, it's tiring. I am grateful for the years I spent here at this wonderful campus and this wonderful educational institution that prepared me for the work, for the march ahead. Because this work can be grueling and exhausting, and at times it's demoralizing and discouraging. But we, fellow Wellesley women, my Wellesley sisters, we have a superpower, the power of sisterhood. And that power makes us bolder, more courageous, unafraid, and determined. That power of sisterhood is also a reminder that the eyes of all the women who came before us, who fought and sacrificed so that we could live in a country where our voices were heard and where we could break barriers, their eyes are on us now. We owe it to them, to every courageous Wellesley woman who's walked these halls before and since, to continue the work and continue the fight for a democracy where truth prevails and where silence and inaction are not an option. a fight that is not determined or defined by one victory or one defeat, but is rooted in sustained, informed engagement of Americans from all backgrounds dedicated to lifting every voice, protecting every vote, and seeking truth and justice and accountability. I know that we can emerge out of this challenging, divisive moment with a democracy and a nation and an economy that is stronger and healthier and more robust than before. But it will take all of us dedicated to that ideal working together, and a sisterhood that will be unrivaled and unparalleled in making it happen. All of that is why I'm in this fight. It is what I have hope that we all can achieve, and what I have confidence that all of us working together, truly coming together as sisters across party lines, across barriers, across boundaries, and all else that divides us, we can achieve that as a community, as a sisterhood, together. Thank you again for this extraordinary recognition, which I'll hold close to my heart in the months and years ahead to remind me of the power we all have when we can unite together and achieve enormous great things as a community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Sue Wagner, class of 1982. Sue is a philanthropic visionary, a global business innovator and pioneer, and a champion of women's education. Having served on the Wellesley College Board of Trustees for 12 years, Sue is also one of the most dedicated citizens of the college and one of its most generous supporters. In 1988, Sue co-founded Blackrock, now the largest investment firm in the world. Over the course of nearly 25 years, Sue's innovation and creativity helped drive Blackrock's success for decades. The firm was a pioneer in risk management systems, leveraging technology to support the investment process and create an investment edge. During her time at Blackrock, Sue served in key leadership roles that drove the firm's success, including as vice chairman from 2006 to 2012, and as a member of the Global Executive Committee and Operating Committee. Before that, some of her roles included Chief Operating Officer and Head of Corporate Strategy and Corporate Development. Sue stepped down as vice chairman of Blackrock in 2012 and joined the company's board of directors, a position she still holds. She also serves on the boards of companies that include Apple, the second woman to be named director in its history, Samsara, and Color Health. A mentor to generations of women, including as the global executive sponsor of BlackRock's Women's Initiative Network, Sue, quote, came to believe very strongly that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. So in 2015, along with trustee emerita Lulu Chow Wong, class of 66, and Wellesley's administration, Sue embarked on a mission to reimagine career education at the college. If you could do anything, she asked herself, how would you empower the administration to serve students better so Wellesley students have the opportunities they desire and that they deserve? Thanks in part to Sue's generosity, including the largest gift ever awarded to Wellesley, the college completely restructured career education, creating a model that follows students holistically through all 4 years on campus and then as alumni, to help them learn where their interests lie and connect them to the right opportunities to realize their full potential. Sue's vision didn't stop there. She wanted Wellesley to leverage its position, stature, and voice to help make sure more women had greater access to opportunity. The Susan L. Wagner 8 Class of 82 Centers for Wellesley in the World, with its support for educational programs and research opportunities, would answer that call. Sue also served as the 2014 Wellesley commencement speaker, telling the graduates that her English degree and a liberal arts education more broadly, gave her critical thinking and communication skills she's applied throughout her life and career. Sue and Paula, if you could please join me at the podium. Sue, for your leadership in founding one of the world's most successful businesses, for creating and advancing opportunities for women everywhere, and for giving back to future generations. Wellesley honors you.
Thank you, Stephanie, for your very kind remarks, and also President Johnson, the Nominations and Selection Committee, and the Alumni Association for this incredible honor. I also want to thank the alumni, students, and faculty who are here today and online. I also want to congratulate Karen and Jocelyn. You are both such inspirations, and I feel so fortunate to share the stage with you. I spoke at a small gathering of corporate leaders last week, and the other person being interviewed was the retired CEO of one of the largest companies in the United States, and he started by talking about imposter syndrome. Boy, do I relate. The last time I was on this stage, some of you may remember, was to interview Al Gore. I would much rather do that than talk about myself. But for today, I was asked to share with you the role that Wellesley played in achieving my goals. And that prompt invites reflection, and it asks one to connect the dots looking backwards. So I promise to be brief. I was just 17 when I arrived at Wellesley, the first person in my extended family to leave Chicago. My high school counselor, guidance counselor, assured me that there was no way I was getting into Wellesley. So I arrived with plenty of imposter syndrome, certain that I had been the cutoff. I didn't have any idea of what I wanted to do during college, much less after. But I do remember, this is going to date me, how thrilled I was to get the course catalog in the mail and pour through it, excited by all the possibilities. Based on my high school experience, taking English was an obvious choice, and avoiding math was equally obvious. But there were distribution requirements to satisfy, so there was no avoiding it. And guess what? I had a good professor, and it clicked, so I took more. I liked having the balance of English and math, because papers can always be better. But math homework is finite. You do the problem, you're done. Other distribution requirements led me to intro econ courses. Later, I loved discovering how the math underpinned the economic theory. It's kind of weird what you end up liking, right? Critical reading and writing were required in both English and econ. In both, you learn to challenge yourself, to ask questions and find answers, to construct and present a cogent argument, all skills I leaned on all throughout my career. In the summer of my junior year, I lost two of my grandparents. I had seen or talked to them nearly every weekend of my life before I left for college. So the loss shook my world. It made me question what was relevant, whether I still wanted to focus so extensively on English. Instead, I declared a second major and took almost all econ courses in my senior year. I did research with two of my professors, which was a wonderful, somewhat uniquely Wellesley experience. I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I quickly came to understand that it's an incredible gift to be respected by people you respect. I don't think I had any great epiphanies while I was here. I just kept following my interests and my instincts. I was encouraged to consider PhD programs, but instead I trusted my instinct to go into business. I went to the University of Chicago to learn what I couldn't study here: finance, marketing, accounting. Not surprisingly, given my liberal arts background, I was drawn to strategy, a more creative endeavor that required me to seek out and synthesize disparate sources of information, make sense of what I was reading and hearing, come up with new ideas, test my thinking, and work collaboratively and creatively to solve problems. As you may have read, I was still quite young when I started Blackrock with 7 partners. Our early idea was very narrow: use our expertise in a small part of the US bond market to help clients better understand their investment risk. We didn't know a lot about starting a company, or being an asset manager. So we listened to investors and their advisors to help understand what problems they were trying to solve and figured out how we could help them. Being client-centric from the beginning, out of necessity, not brilliance, turned out to be the right strategy and is still core to the business today. As a fiduciary, we were always mindful that we were managing our clients' money, not ours, and they trusted us to follow their instructions and pursue their goals. Over time, we expanded our capabilities, offering a wider range of products so clients could choose investments that best align with their priorities and their values. A month after we started Blackrock, we began working with Japanese companies, then the largest buyers of U.S. mortgage securities. I was responsible for building that business. I found it fascinating to learn about their culture and their way of doing business, and I was willing to travel there often to demonstrate our commitment. That openness and curiosity and consistent commitment helped us build strong relationships that continue to this day. Now, you might have realized that my journey after Wellesley took me to lots of places that were not known for being friendly to women. I was aware but not daunted by that fact, and I think I have to credit Wellesley for that. After all, when you come to Wellesley, you learn with and from women from all walks of life, and take it for granted that there isn't anything women can't do. Somewhat against my better judgment, I started my career in investment banking where there were very few women. I moved on to Blackrock, where a quarter of the founding partners were women. That was a big number in those days. I started our Japanese business where women are highly educated, but were not prevalent in the professional ranks. 2 decades later, I was in our office to launch the Tokyo chapter of the Blackrock Women's Network, thrilled that we had enough professional women in Japan to do so. And as of this week, Japan has its first female prime minister. Around the same time, we traveled with our board to Saudi Arabia, where I was drawn into a discussion with very senior business leaders about educating women. You could send your daughters to the US and the UK for school, but opportunities in country were very limited. Women had to be covered, including me, and couldn't drive or go out without their husbands, and they certainly weren't visible in business meetings. Now, you can choose to not engage or to walk away when you disagree, or you can respectfully challenge, both in word and by the way you conduct yourself. 3 years ago, I was back in Saudi Arabia meeting with senior men and women in business and government. Their energy and enthusiasm was palpable as they worked toward diversifying their economy and creating a better future for their country. It was incredible to see the transformation. So there's hope. There's progress. It's not a straight line, but it is forward momentum. Throughout my career, I've taken great pride in supporting the women at Blackrock, now a much larger percentage of the firm, and Blackrock's efforts to promote financial inclusion and educate women on investing. If we want to talk about sisterhood, women currently control 1/3 of the world's financial assets, on the way to nearly 50% by 2030, and estimated to be as much as 70% by 2050. And they approach money differently. So understanding and serving women has never been more important. I no longer support those efforts as an executive, but I'm happy to do so from my seat at the board table. As I look back on my career, my Wellesley roots were an invisible guiding force. It's where my curiosity and cultural sensitivity were cultivated, where my interest in always learning, asking questions, challenging assumptions, connecting dots, and communicating ideas clearly was encouraged and flourished. I never imagined I would come back as a trustee, but when asked, I was moved by the opportunity to pay it forward. I remain a firm believer in the liberal arts and in the effect an educated woman can have on society. What better place to support women's education and opportunity than right here? So to the students, if any of them are left, make the most of your time here by taking the opportunity to expose yourself to new ideas, learn from fellow students as well as your professors, take full advantage of the breadth and depth of Wellesley's offering. To the faculty, and I do know there are a few here, thank you for your passion to teach and work with undergraduates. I appreciated how special my professors were when I was here as a student, and I was constantly energized and inspired by the faculty when I was back here as a trustee. And thank you to Wellesley for the doors you opened in my mind, for unlocking opportunities I didn't foresee, and for staying true to your mission to educate women who will and do make a difference. Thank you.
What a great way to end the week, huh? Thank you all for joining the Alumni Association in honoring these three remarkable women. And please join me in thanking Erin Corcoran, class of 2013, and our Alumni Association staff for organizing this wonderful ceremony. And I hope you'll all join us downstairs in the Alumni Hall Ballroom, just one flight down, for some light refreshments and to continue to be able to celebrate these wonderful women. Thank you.